I'm writing this from a hotel room far from that cursed Airbnb in Maine. My hands shake and I keep checking the windows, half expecting to see those eyes again. I thought a seaside cottage would be the perfect escape after my breakup, a week to breathe the salt air, clear my mind, maybe write some poetry. The listing promised a cozy retreat with ocean views, showing a weathered house perched on a cliff, wildflowers swaying in the breeze. It looked like a storybook haven. But that house wasn't a haven. It was alive. And it hated me. I arrived last Monday as the sun sank, painting the sky blood red. The cottage was smaller than the photos, its gray shingles peeling like dead skin. The host, Elias, left a key under the mat with a note. Make yourself at home. Don't mind the quirks. Quirks? I brushed it off. Old houses creak, right? I unpacked, lit a fire in the stone hearth, and sipped wine, gazing at the waves crashing below. The view was stunning, but the air felt heavy, like the house was holding its breath. That first night, I woke at 3 a.m. to a tapping sound. Faint, like fingertips on glass. I checked the windows, all locked, the ocean roaring outside. Just the wind, I thought, but the air was still. I crawled back to bed, pulling the quilt tight, yet the feeling lingered. I wasn't alone. Morning revealed a smudge on the living room window. A handprint, too large to be mine, pressed from the inside. My stomach twisted. I wiped it away, checked the locks again, and found no sign of entry. I texted Elias, but he didn't reply. Tuesday night the tapping returned louder from the attic. It wasn't random, it had a rhythm, like Morse code. I called Elias, but his voicemail was full. The listing said the attic was storage only, so I didn't dare investigate. Instead, I dragged a chair against the attic door and stacked books on it, praying it would hold. Sleep was impossible. Every creak felt like footsteps. I kept my phone close, recording the sounds to prove I wasn't crazy. When I played it back, a low hum pulsed beneath the tapping. Not words, just a guttural sound, like a voice trying to form. Stay Wednesday, the house felt alive. Shadows shifted in my peripheral vision, and the mirrors were wrong. My reflection lagged, just a fraction, as if it was watching me back. I found another handprint, this time on the bathroom mirror, smeared like someone had dragged their fingers down it. I emailed Elias, begging for answers, but got no response. That night, the tapping became scratching, clawing from the attic, like nails on wood. I clutched my phone, debating the police. But what would I say? My Airbnb is creepy. Instead, I recorded again. This time, the hum formed a word. Stay. My blood ran cold. Thursday, I found the photo. Tucked in a kitchen drawer, it showed a family from decades ago, standing outside the cottage. Their faces were blurred, as if the camera had shaken, but their eyes followed me. I shoved it back, heart racing, and decided to leave. As I packed, the lights flickered, and the temperature plummeted. My breath fogged in the air. The scratching spread to the walls, circling me. Then from the attic, that voice again. Stay? It wasn't human. Too deep, too hollow. I grabbed my bag and ran for the door, but it wouldn't budge. The lock was jammed, the handle ice cold. Panic clawed at me as the scratching grew louder, closer, like it was inside the walls. I don't know how I escaped. I smashed a window, cutting my hand, and stumbled to my car. The house loomed in the rearview mirror, its windows like eyes, unblinking. I drove to this hotel, blood dripping on the steering wheel. I keep hearing that whisper. Stay. And last night I saw a handprint on my hotel window, too large to be mine. I'm leaving Maine tomorrow. I don't know if it's following me, but I can't shake the feeling that the house isn't done with me.
The guest who never left. I'm on a friend's couch, trying to make sense of what happened. I booked an Airbnb in the Smoky Mountains, a cabin in the woods, thinking it'd be a quiet place to finish my novel. Keys in the lockbox. Respect the space. The listing promised rustic charm with modern amenities, and the reviews raved about the solitude. Solitude was what I wanted, but I wasn't alone. Something, or someone, was already there, and it didn't want me to leave. I arrived on a foggy Friday evening, the cabin emerging from the mist like a ghost. It was beautiful. Logs and glass, a porch overlooking a ravine. The host, Clara, sent instructions. Keys in the lockbox. Respect the space. I let myself in, the scent of pine and damp earth thick. The cabin was spotless, but the air felt wrong, like I'd interrupted something. That night I heard footsteps, heavy, deliberate, pacing the upstairs hallway. I was downstairs, typing at the kitchen table. Old cabins settle, I told myself, but the steps didn't stop. They paused outside my bedroom door when I went to bed. Morning showed muddy boot prints on the porch, leading to the door, but not away. I called Clara, but she didn't answer. Her email auto-reply said she was out of town. Saturday, things escalated. My laptop kept shutting down, the screen flickering with static. Once it opened a blank document with one word: mine. I hadn't typed it. My coffee mug moved across the counter. My shoes by the door were flipped upside down. I told myself I was tired, but then I found the journal, leather-bound, hidden under a loose floorboard in the bedroom. Dated 1983, it belonged to Daniel, a guest before Airbnb existed. He wrote of footsteps, shadows, feeling watched. His last entry read, "It wants me to stay. I can't leave." Sunday night, the power cut out. I lit candles, their light casting shadows that moved too slowly. Sorry about the mix-up. Then I saw her, a figure in the corner, pale, translucent, her eyes black pits. She didn't move, just stared. I screamed and she vanished, but the air turned icy. My phone died despite being charged. I grabbed my keys, but the front door was locked from the outside. I pounded on it, shouting until a whisper came from behind. "You're mine." It was Daniel's voice, rough and desperate from the journal. I broke a window, climbed out, and ran through the woods, thorns tearing my legs. My car started, and I drove until dawn. Clara called back, apologizing for the mix-up with the door, but her voice sounded rehearsed. I keep dreaming of the cabin, of Daniel's journal, of her eyes. Yesterday, I found a muddy boot print on my friend's porch. I don't think I left that cabin alone. I searched online and found nothing about the cabin, but an old forum mentioned a hiker, Daniel, who vanished in those woods in 1983. Locals say the cabin claims its guests, trapping them forever. I don't know what I encountered, but it's not gone. I feel it watching, waiting, whispering, mine.
The room at the end of the hall. I'm in a motel, the neon sign buzzing outside. I can't go home yet, not after that Airbnb in Savannah. I booked it for a weekend getaway, a historic townhouse with ivy-covered walls and glowing reviews. The listing promised southern charm and a touch of mystery. I thought it meant ghost tours, not this. I don't know what was in that house, but it's still with me and I'm terrified it always will be. I arrived Thursday afternoon, the townhouse glowing in the golden light. It was stunning, high ceilings, oak floors, antique furniture. The host, Margaret, left a key and a note. "Enjoy your stay. Stay out of the locked room." The hallway had a door at the end, bolted shut. I figured it was storage and ignored it. I unpacked, explored the city and returned at dusk, feeling at home. That night I heard singing, soft, like a lullaby, coming from the locked room. I pressed my ear to the door, but it stopped. Just the house settling, I thought. I went to bed, but the singing returned, louder, joined by a faint tapping. I checked the door, still locked, and called Margaret. No answer. Opened the door. Friday I noticed scratches on the locked door, fresh and deep like claw marks. The air in the hallway felt heavy, and the mirrors reflected something. A shadow behind me, gone when I turned. I found an old photo in a drawer. A woman in a white dress, her face blurred, standing in the hallway. The caption read, "Amelia, 1923. That night, the singing became a wail, and the tapping turned to banging. I recorded it, and when I played it back, a voice whispered, "Open the door!" Saturday, I tried to leave, but the front door wouldn't unlock. The windows were sealed shut. The banging grew louder, and the air turned cold. I saw her, Amelia, in the hallway, her dress stained, her eyes hollow. She pointed at the locked door, mouthing, "Open it!" I screamed, and she vanished, but the banging didn't stop. I broke a window, climbed out, and ran to my car. I'm at this motel, but I hear singing at night, and my mirror shows her shadow. I searched the townhouse online. An article said Amelia, a tenant, was locked in that room in 1923 and never found. The house is still listed on Airbnb. I don't know what she wanted, but I feel her eyes on me, urging me to go back. I don't know what was in that house, but it's still with me, and I'm terrified it always will be.
It was supposed to be a perfect weekend getaway. My girlfriend Emily and I had been dating for just over a year, and we were both desperate for a break from the grind of our 9-to-5 jobs in the city. We'd been scrolling through Airbnb for weeks, looking for something quiet, secluded, and romantic. A place where we could unplug, sip wine by a fireplace, and just be together. That's when we found it, a charming century-old cabin nestled in the woods of upstate New York. The listing described it as a rustic retreat with modern amenities, perfect for couples seeking solitude. The photos showed a cozy interior with exposed wooden beams, a stone fireplace, and a wraparound porch overlooking a dense forest. The price was surprisingly affordable, and the host, a man named Richard, had a 4.9-star rating with glowing reviews. A hidden gem, one review read. So peaceful you'll never want to leave. Another gushed. We booked it immediately. The drive up was long, about 4 hours from the city, and the GPS struggled as we ventured deeper into the countryside. The roads narrowed, pavement giving way to gravel, and eventually, we were winding through a forest so thick it seemed to swallow the sunlight. Emily was excited, snapping photos of the scenery, but I felt a strange unease creeping in. Maybe it was the isolation, or maybe it was the fact that we hadn't seen another car for miles. By the time we reached the cabin, it was dusk, and the air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. The cabin looked exactly like the photos, almost too perfect. It was a 2-story structure with dark wood siding and a steeply pitched roof. The porch creaked under our feet as we carried our bags to the front door. Richard had left a key under the mat as promised, along with a handwritten note. "Welcome to the cabin. Make yourselves at home. Wi-Fi password is on the fridge. Respect the house, and it'll respect you." I chuckled at the last line, thinking it was just quirky host humor. Emily rolled her eyes and pushed the door open. Inside, the cabin was warm and inviting. The living room had a plush couch, a coffee table stacked with old books, and a fireplace already stocked with logs. The kitchen was small but modern, with a shiny new fridge and a coffee maker. Upstairs there was a single bedroom with a king-size bed and a window overlooking the forest. Everything was clean, almost obsessively so, like no one had ever stayed here before us. Emily was thrilled, already planning to spend the evening curled up by the fire with a glass of wine. I tried to shake off the weird feeling I'd had since we arrived, chalking it up to city dweller nerves in the middle of nowhere. That first night was perfect. We cooked dinner, laughed, and fell asleep to the sound of crickets. But around 2 a.m., I woke up to a strange noise. It wasn't loud, just off. A faint scratching, like nails dragging across wood, coming from downstairs. I lay there, listening, my heart picking up speed. Emily was still asleep, her breathing soft and steady. I told myself it was probably just the house settling or an animal outside. Old cabins make noises, right? I rolled over and eventually drifted back to sleep. The next morning, Emily was up early making coffee. I told her about the noise, but she brushed it off. "It's an old house in the woods, Jake. It's probably just mice or something." I nodded, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the sound wasn't outside. It felt closer, like it was coming from inside the walls. We spent the day exploring the area. There was a hiking trail nearby, and we followed it to a small lake about a mile from the cabin. The water was still, reflecting the gray sky above, and the silence was almost oppressive. Emily loved it, but I kept glancing over my shoulder, feeling like we were being watched. On the way back, I noticed something odd, a small weathered sign nailed to a tree near the cabin. It read, "Stay on the path." No context, no explanation. I pointed it out to Emily, who just shrugged. "Probably for hikers," she said. "You're being paranoid." That night, we decided to stay in and watch a movie on my laptop. The Wi-Fi was spotty, so we ended up playing cards instead. Around 10 p.m., the scratching started again. This time, Emily heard it too. We froze, staring at each other across the table. The sound was louder now, more deliberate, coming from the direction of the kitchen. I grabbed a flashlight and crept toward the sound, my heart pounding. The kitchen was empty, the fridge humming quietly. I checked the windows and doors, all locked. Emily suggested it might be a raccoon in the walls, but I wasn't so sure. The scratching stopped as suddenly as it started, leaving us in silence. We went to bed uneasy. I double-checked the bedroom door, making sure it was locked, and kept a heavy bookend from the nightstand within reach. I don't know why I felt the need to arm myself, but something about the cabin was starting to feel wrong, like it was watching us. At 3 a.m., I woke up again. This time it wasn't scratching. It was a voice. Low, muffled, almost like a whisper. But I couldn't make out the words. It was coming from downstairs. I shook Emily awake, and she heard it too. Her eyes were wide, her face pale in the moonlight. "What the hell is that?" she whispered. I didn't have an answer. I grabbed the bookend and crept to the door, easing it open. The whispering stopped, replaced by a heavy silence that felt like it was pressing down on us. I stepped onto the landing, shining the flashlight down the stairs. Nothing. Just darkness. "Jake, let's just go back to bed," Emily said, her voice trembling. But I couldn't. I had to know what was going on. I descended the stairs, each step creaking under my weight. The living room was empty, the kitchen unchanged. But when I shined the flashlight toward the fireplace, I froze. The logs we burned earlier were neatly stacked again, as if we'd never lit the fire. I called Emily down, and she gasped when she saw it. "That's not possible," she said. "We burned those logs. I watched them turn to ash." We decided to leave first thing in the morning. Neither of us wanted to stay another night. But as we packed our bags, I noticed something else. The books on the coffee table were different. Yesterday, they'd been old novels and nature guides. Now, they were journals, their covers worn and faded. I opened one, and my blood ran cold. The pages were filled with handwriting, different handwriting, like multiple people had written in it. The entries were dated, some going back decades, and they all described the same thing. Strange noises, whispers, the feeling of being watched. One entry, dated just a week ago, read, "The house doesn't want us to leave. It's in the walls." Emily was crying now, begging me to get us out of there. I grabbed our bags and headed for the door, but when I tried to open it, the handle wouldn't budge. The lock was undone, but the door felt like it was sealed shut. I threw my shoulder against it, but it didn't move. Emily screamed, pointing to the window. Outside in the darkness, I saw a figure, tall, thin, motionless, just standing at the edge of the porch. Its face was obscured, but I could feel its eyes on us. I grabbed a chair and smashed the window, glass shattering everywhere. "Come on," I yelled, pulling Emily toward the opening. We climbed out, cutting our hands on the jagged edges, and ran for the car. The figure was gone, but I could hear footsteps crunching in the gravel behind us. I didn't look back. We jumped in the car and I floored it, the tires spinning as we tore down the gravel road. We didn't stop until we reached a gas station an hour away. My hands were shaking as I called Airbnb to report the listing. The representative sounded confused, saying there was no record of a cabin at that address. I checked my booking confirmation and the listing was gone, like it had never existed. When I tried to contact Richard, the host, the number was disconnected. We drove back to the city in silence, too shaken to talk. When we got home, I checked my phone for the photos Emily had taken of the cabin. They were gone, every single one. But there was one new photo in my gallery, one I didn't take. It was a blurry shot of the cabin's interior, taken from the living room. In the corner, barely visible, was a figure, tall, thin, with no discernible face, standing by the fireplace. We never spoke about that weekend again. But sometimes, late at night, I hear scratching in the walls of our apartment. And I can't shake the feeling that the house, or whatever was in it, followed us home.